Welcome to Express Yourself in Writing. Today we'll be talking about dictation and organizing your ideas. I've kind of listed the free universal tools for speech recognition. So no, whatever device you have, one of these will be accessible on it. On the Chromebook, they call it Easy Dictation. It works pretty well. My district is a Chrome district. I've had some really nice success with that for students who have intelligible speech. It works really well. Windows 11 with their upgrade, it's a little confusing. There's speech recognition and voice typing, and they kind of work together, and you can use one or you can use the other. One of them will control the computer. Voice typing will control the computer as well as do the speech recognition. There's a video on all of that. Google voice typing is also really had a big improvement in their voice typing. The one thing I want to go back and say about the voice typing and speech recognition in Windows 11 is you can train the computer to your voice, so you can improve its ability to recognize your particular speech nuances. So I haven't tried this yet because we are a Chrome district. I'm wondering if it's going to be something that is going to allow students who can work on it, who have access to a Windows-based system, to be able to do many of the functions that they would need to purchase Dragon for. So I'm wondering if that's going to do some replacement for Dragon. Rose, do you have something?
Yes, there's a question in the chat window. What if a student's speech is not easily recognized even after multiple attempts?
You can, I believe in Windows, and I know for sure in Dragon, you can go in and start training each individual word or each word that it's not recognizing. So I have a high schooler who has a ventilator that she's able to cap and then speak. And she, because of I've had several students who've been working on that, because of the ventilator, it really impacts their speech quality. And so what we're going to work on with the student I'm working with is, I think we're going to try Dragon because we are in a Windows system, and we have to still have a Windows system for Dragon. But anyway, so Dragon doesn't work on the Chromebook either. So there's some pros and cons to the Chromebook Pro. The Easy Dictation is good. You have access to Google voice typing. So I think that is what we're going to be working on with her, is we're going to have her, say the words. And if there are words that it is not getting, you can go back into the settings and train this. So this is a student who's college bound, and typing is not efficient for her because of her disability. So if you've got those students who are going to be college bound, keep working with them. I would keep trying Google voice typing because they're doing some research on different types of speech differences, as far as like aphasia and dysarthric speech. And so I think you're going to see that continue to get smarter and smarter. And the more they train it and train the specific words, it gets smarter and smarter. Does that answer your question, Pamela?
I'll just chime in. I concur. I think Dragon, like you said, is the one that's historically been able to train your voice and compensate somewhat for some speech impediments. But I would also, I'm a proponent of making sure they're a strong user of word prediction along with the, trialing speech recognition, because then they have the fallback of typing with word prediction. So always making sure that you have the dictation and word prediction skills being developed together, because it might be a loud room. It might be, it can't hear your voice for a number of reasons. It's good to have that backup. But and everything Heidi said as well.
I think, and like Rose said, I just want to echo on that. Like my student, we've trialed multiple types of speech recognition tools with her. And that's where we've kind of landed on, I think we need to do something specific where she can specifically train the voice. And then if you're using a Mac, it's called Dictation, and it's voice dictation on iOS devices, because nobody seems to be able to call it the same thing. The next few slides, I have found videos explaining each of these. I'm not going to spend our time today watching those videos, because you can go back and watch whatever tools are available in your district. So I don't want to, if you're a Google district, I don't want to spend time watching the Windows 11 version. This talks a little bit about the Chromebook dictation. Here is some information about Windows. Here is some more information about Windows. So this one is like controlling your computer with your voice and voice training. And so this is the short guide over here for how you would do that voice training when it's not recognizing what the student is saying. So just lots of information here. And so as far as like totally controlling your computer, I think Windows and Dragon are the only two that I believe do that at this point, but I expect that to continue to change.
I have another comment. I was just looking back at one of your links in the first slide there, a couple slides back, was about voice commands. And
Yes.
I think like when you're doing kind of the teaching speech recognition lessons, I think at some point, if students are going to use it a lot, that's another thing to kind of teach explicitly, because some of them don't even realize that they can, punctuate and do new paragraph and all those commands through voice commands. And it used to just be that Dragon did that, but now the other the other programs are catching up. So I think that's an important one to help students, again, feel more capable and excited and successful, is to kind of help them to learn the basic, and also just throw in some of those voice commands to like have them experience some of the bells and whistles that are pretty cool.
Yeah, and this voice typing video here from Google, he does a really great job here. So again, another, he's very excited about the new updates, and there's a lot of updates. And this is a quick little demo of dictation on the Mac and then on iOS devices.
So I'm on an iPhone, and I end up opening a notes, just a new notes page, and it does really well. I mean, I think iOS is incredibly accurate when you're dictating on your phone. I really don't see any mistakes, but I did pause, like I thought of something to say, and then I said it and period, and then I would wait. See the it's really easy to try to fill the gap with or oh. So there's a skill, right, in being thoughtful about what you want to say, and then waiting until it's in your head, and then saying without that fill in. So that was my experience, but no, it's amazingly accurate. That was what I came away with, and it was fun. Pam says, where is the microphone in notes? So when
it's right under your keyboard.
Yeah. So when you type a new notes thing, as soon as you tap in there, so the cursor's in there, your keyboard comes up and it's in the lower right corner. There's a microphone. I just say one other Go ahead.
I was going to say, if the microphone is not there, you have to go into your settings and enable the microphone on iOS devices.
That's a good point. I was just going to say another thing. One of my sentences did automatically put in commas, but another one didn't. So you might, again, as you're dictating, another new skill is when you speak, you don't usually say comma and period. Yet when you dictate, it's a good practice to do that. Although it's getting smarter. If you pause, sometimes it knows to do that. So,
and many of the programs you can turn on or off the auto punctuation. So you can try it both ways and see how that goes. We've got Michelle here who used an Android phone, and it was also very accurate. She agrees with this skill of thinking what you say before speaking can be tricky. It takes practice.
I think that's where those class lessons that Heidi was talking about are really good. You're teaching everyone in the class. All the students are learning. That's a universal skill, right? It doesn't only help dictation. It helps us when we're communicating with people with speech too, to stop, think, and then speak.
Oh, so, interesting. Yeah. Pamela said that co-writer wasn't so accurate.
Oh.
Anybody
else?
Co-writer,
well, I just had a question about co-writer. So I think co-writer taps into the Google Voice directly. So were you using it as a Chrome extension with the Google Voice? I think so. That's Google Voice you're using. I don't know if it would be the same whether you did it just Google Voice with the Google Doc versus using co-writer with the Google Voice, but that's just an observation. I just typed in there, are you using co-writer with Word Online. I was aware in my prior districts that co-writer was having some issues, because when Microsoft updates, sometimes that interferes with co-writer's performance with Word and Word Online. So that could be your issue if you're using the latest Co-Writer Universal, or maybe you're using an older desktop version. You don't think so? Okay. Anyway, yeah, I think co-writer's optimized to use as a Google extension is what I've found.
Well, and the thing I love now is there's so many choices. So if you try it with co-writer with a student and it doesn't work, then, you can use whatever your operating system has, whether it's Google Speak or the Dictation in Chrome or the Office 11. So there's a lot of great things there. So then there's some paid universal tools for speech recognition, text help using Read and Write. So that the Read and Write platform has a lot of accessibility supports, and one of them is Dictation. It does use the Google Dictation. I found it to be pretty accurate. Co-writer, you have to hit the little button to move from word prediction to speech and speak it. A lot of times what I'll do there for students is I'll just say, hey, if you're using your word prediction and you're trying to get something and you spell it so bad that it's not even predicting it, turn the microphone over and just say that word. And that seems to work pretty well. There is Speak Cue within Word Cue. They used to be two separate products and now they're together. And you can do some voice training with that one as well. And then Dragon Naturally Speaking, which lets you do a lot of voice training and it will also operate your entire computer.
I was just going to say regarding Word Queue, I use that in Bellevue School District. That actually taps into the Windows 10 or now Windows 11 speech recognition. So you have to train your voice to it. That's the one thing about the Windows versus just the online Microsoft Dictate, which you can use right out of the box. The Windows one, you have to train your voice. And I have found it to be a little clunkier. So of those choices, even though I have used WordQ a lot, the speech recognition probably is not as accurate as the other tools there. Although if you're using it as a primary tool, it's nice to have everything all in one. And I think if you train your voice to it, it can probably improve. But that's just my practical experience.
As that SpeakQ, you no longer have to train it. You can choose to train it. And same thing with Windows. You can choose to train it, or you can just, so if it's not accurately picking up your voice, then you can go in and train it to get it more accurate. So they have definitely worked on it. It's getting, all of them are so much more accessible. So I'm just super excited about that. So again, there's a little video on each of them. We'll buzz through. There's one on Read and Write. There's one on co-writer. There's there's one on speech recognition, SpeakQ. Some of them are long. I mean, some of them. This one is the Quillsoft one is long, and then here's it's about 10 minutes. And then here is the Dragon Naturally Speaking Getting Started tutorial. So some of the kids who I typically recommend Dragon, but now I'm going to be looking at Windows 11 as well, that need to control their computer are my students who have quadriplegia and need to be able to have good voice control and need to be able to direct their computer to do all the things that we normally would do with our hands. I think if you can use a combo of your hands and your voice, sometimes that's you can use some of the built-in systems as well. Prediction versus dictation. How do you decide what you're going to work on with the student?
I'll just say I kind of helped think of this because, as an OT, when I'd be doing assessments, this was always the big question. How do you decide what's going to give them more support first, or what they're going to be more successful at? How do you assess and make those decisions? So Stephanie said motor skills.
I'm an OT, so I just think about the fine motor skills in order to isolate the index finger and be able to use the computer to type and do word prediction. But I think you can do both, do word prediction and speech to text.
I
You are
love
right.
that answer.
That was our trick
Ding,
question.
ding, ding. Can do both. And, technically word prediction saves keystrokes. So if you have limited fine motor and you can at least use your index finger to, hunt and peck, you should be able to see the word come up and choose it in word prediction. And if your voice is good and you have limited fine motor and you get proficient at dictation, maybe that is your main gig. Or if you're kind of working on both, it's good to have both skills because you just never know when dictation may not be available to you, correct? So it's nice to have that skill of knowing how to use word prediction either way. But yeah, so both and probably.
Yeah. I had a student, a high schooler, that he didn't want like an iPad or a different device. We weren't a one-to-one district at the time. And he did all of his work, very dysgraphic, and did all of his work in Word on his phone. And so he would use the built-in kind of word prediction on his phone. And then if he spelled it, if he couldn't get it even close, then he'd hit the microphone and dictate. So I think the important things is so many of these things that used to be specific tools are now universal tools. And so I'm just like, okay, we're going to teach you all the tools in your toolbox. And then you can unpack which one you need when you need it in the opportunity. So it might be dictating your whole paper, or it might be dictating those words that you just can't get with word prediction. What about, do you guys have any prerequisites to start dictation with a student? And that kind of goes along with what age do you feel students can be successful with dictation? So any thoughts on that?
And just to let you know, Heidi and I had some different ideas about this. So there's not really one right answer.
Where I used to say dictation is hard to use in the classroom. If you're in the classroom setting and you're trying to dictate, it's very hard to use. So that makes it a little bit more of a restrictive technology. And I used to be like, oh, they've got to be able to, they need to be readers and they need to be able to edit it. And, if they don't have like those essential reading skills to go back and edit it, it's probably not going to be a successful tool for them. Well, I had some teachers prove me wrong. And so they had students who just could not generate anything in writing or typing because their dysgraphia impacted them so much that, and it impacted their reading, their dyslexia and dyspraxia, and impacted their reading, but bright kids. And so she's like, I just started having her dictate with dictation on the Chrome, and I went from getting nothing to getting like a 5-sentence paragraph. And they need some assistance to go back and check for punctuation, edit, because they don't have the reading skills to edit that. If you're in read and write can read it back to them. Immersive Reader can read it back to them in Microsoft, and you can find your places you need to edit. But I don't really, kind of where I am now is, if that young woman, she sees herself as a writer. And so now she's like, I'm a writer, I can write. And her stuff is like making sense. And she's just really needing some help with those writing conventions. So I don't have any prerequisites anymore.
Well, I would just add to that. Heidi has broadened my mind a little bit because I was thinking, I've seen a lot of frustrated students trying to use word prediction, but it's not saying what they think, and they don't have the patience to go back and edit. So if there's a good paraeducator or a teacher willing, or parents even willing to help go back and walk through that editing process with students, I think that's a good thing. So what kind of support is available and what's the frustration level of that student are two important questions. But yeah, why not try it with everybody? And it can be great if it works out that way. So,
yeah, and I think if you use the guide, the speech recognition resource guide, I think it helps you with some of that frustration with the students. And these are the things we're going to be working on for a while. And I think modeling it, I think that's the piece we always forget with dictation, is how to model what you're doing.